Welcome to the FreightWaves Small Fleet and Owner Operator Summit, also brought to you by Trucker Tools as well. I'm Thomas Wasson, a trucking expert here at FreightWaves, and am pleased and very excited to be talking to today Prasad Gollapalli. He is the founder and strategic advisor to Trucker Tools, and we'll be talking a little bit about loyalty and how important it is, and we're talking about relationships between carriers and brokers. So, Prasad, super excited to have you on. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited. This is going to be a great show. Thanks, Thomas, for having me here.
And I'm speaking of great show, let's get a rolling here. Looking at back when I was a carrier and I was a broker, we're talking about like carrier loyalty. You want to be that person the carrier calls. And so for a lot of people, I don't think they really understand. They think it's transactional. Being Trucker Tools, having this platform, how important have you noticed the value in actually trying to develop that relationship?
Thomas, carrier loyalty is probably one of the most important things. When you talk to brokers, the very first thing they'll say is, we want our carriers to be loyal to us, and we want to be loyal to our carriers, right? Likewise, carriers would say the same thing, right? So I'm going to take one step back and just paint the picture of what Trucker Tools is right today. For those who are new to Trucker Tools is a carrier relationship management platform, and hence you see where the loyalty is coming from, right? It's a software platform that connects brokers and carriers, primarily the long tail of carriers, owner operators, small carriers, right? That we truly need in our industry. The purpose of this platform is to provide real-time visibility, digital freight matching, and help carriers with everyday things such as finding cheapest fuel, routing, and everything on their road, right? Today we have about 2 million truckers on our platform with over 250,000 small carriers. It's the most downloaded app in our industry. So that's the background, of where I'm coming from.
And looking into that, like being big, being number one on the App Store for that, we talked about the long tail, and I'm so interested because I know that almost the value of a broker is how well can you find that long tail. Like, how hard is it to find the carriers? What makes it so important to have that app and have that visibility when you're trying to find, some of those hard to reach places for capacity?
So you said it very well. How well you reach to that long tail is the challenge the brokers have, right? Today, most of the brokers, they have thousands and thousands of carriers, primarily these small carriers in their system. The problem with that list is it's not short, which is a good thing, right? It's a big list, great. But the problem is most of those carriers are one and done. We call them one load wonders. After a carrier moves a load for the broker, carrier leaves the system, goes on to work with another broker. Now, in an industry where we see really tight capacity one day and go from that to softening capacity, just like that, this one transactional behavior, one load wonder or transactional behavior between a broker and a carrier is really bad for both the parties, not just a broker or a carrier, right? So our purpose, Trucker Tools' goal has always been, how do we help carriers and brokers build that relationship using a software platform? So a carrier is moving more loads for a broker, feeling that loyalty, becoming the carrier of choice for that broker. Likewise, a broker looks at a particular carrier and says, you're my favorite carrier, right? And that good behavior is embedded in our platform, like whether moving more loads on time, right? On time pickup, on time delivery, doing the tracking, or moving more loads just by nature, right? That builds that dependability between the carrier and the broker. And that's how the platform is built. And now that's used as the basis for loyalty program.
And looking to move away, I feel like when I first was a broker, it was one load wonders all the way because it was so hard to get folks to want to repeatedly work with you. Were there anything, as you all have built this platform over the years, of course, were there any fundamental pillars for either a carrier or a broker that can kind of best practices in terms of how can you develop and nurture this loyalty?
So the loyalty program, in short, is basically rewarding the carrier for best behavior, right? Whether doing things, like I said, on-time pickups, tracking a load, doing more loads through, or booking more loads through Book It Now, and so on and so forth, right? Now, the pillars are basically, it requires obviously the brokers paying for it, what kind of behavior the brokers want to encourage the carriers, and carriers feeling that they're getting rewarded for good behavior, right? Because Thomas, we not long ago we hear a lot of carriers and brokers saying, hey, we get penalized for not tracking, or we get penalized for something. That's a stick. We're encouraging more carrots here, right? Like, encourage good behavior. So that's the first part. The second part, the pillars of this program are, once a carrier gets points, similar to airlines and stuff like that, right? If you fly on Delta and you collect your points, you get, upgrades, right? So here, these points are actually converted into real dollars, gift cards for the carriers, and they can redeem at over 200 plus retail stores, chains rather. So oftentimes, when people think about loyalty program for truckers, they always think about only truck stops. So we basically said, it's not just truck stops where truckers want to, take redeem these points. They're like you and me, right? They have kids where they have to go to, we can't go to Baby Saras anymore, but Bye Bye Baby or some other place to buy toys, right? Those are real stores that everybody wants to go and cash their points. It's actually very good because people feel really proud when they are able to cash their rewards for their loved ones. It's a story they tell their family, right? How well they did, and they're being rewarded for that.
Well, I think that's kind of the next level. Not a lot of folks, and I haven't seen in my experiences before, where we've taken it to a point where you, like you said, you're incentivized for good behavior, which is always a fundamental thing you want to do for retention. And then you actually can use it. Like you said, when I talk to drivers, sometimes they'd go, they're at a Walmart, they're like at a Home Depot, they're going anywhere that they can fit. The hardest thing is just finding somewhere to fit. But like you said, you can't just keep it tied into truck stops or a fuel rewards card. Having that breadth and that ability is almost going to be a game changer. Is this something that, if I'm a broker, can I get some cool rewards points as well? Or is this something where we want to kind of encourage it for the carriers and then let the brokers kind of set what they're willing to encourage?
So right now, in the initial release of this program, brokers pay for these points, right? So they can pay for the points. They can also set the good behavior, whether it's a repeat behavior from a carrier or doing XYZ, right? You're submitting the documents through the app, so I don't need to chase you to pay your invoice, right? Things like that. This is a very simple thing, but you've been in this space for many years. You know how many times a broker chases a carrier to get that invoice, right? Bill of lading. So you can define the program. It's set up in such a way that each broker can have multiple programs running, and it's just literally their play. They have a big playbook, right? For brokers to redeem, right? The idea behind what we were thinking is, once we get this program going on for the carriers, big brokers can actually start rewarding their own team members too, along with it. So this can be expanded to any levels, not just the carriers, right? Carriers can reward their drivers. So there's a lot of opportunity ahead of us. So we started with, one broker, one carrier, kind of like, we're setting that stage, but it could go beyond just brokers rewarding carriers.
It gets me excited to think about, because when I worked as a broker, there were some somewhat internal rewards programs, but having that ability to, from either a brokerage or a carrier side, to incentivize it via third party can be super useful, just because, like you said, I got in so much heat for having aging. 45 days for a bill, 60 days for a bill, you're waiting to collect it. So you literally could spend you could pay a fee to do these rewards programs, but you're also making it back because you're speeding up your cash flow.
You're right. And I have another example on this where, we're in a space where, let's say there is a load that was very hard for a carrier to go and pick it up at that, odd hour. And carrier does an amazing job of, being on that load in spite of all opportunities to leave that load, right? And picks up that load, delivers it on time, and shipper is super happy, broker is super happy. Oftentimes, a broker calls the carrier and says, hey, thank you very much, buddy, for doing this. I owe you one, right? That I owe you one is no more I owe you one. I'm already giving you this point. Here, have a meal on me, right? I'm sending you this card, just enjoy the weekend, take your family to dinner, right? Things like that. You can now really add material reward to it as opposed to just saying thanks. Thanks, very important, right? I mean, we want to thank our drivers very much. Without them, we don't have an industry.
And I think that that's very interesting to see because I've seen, like, even when I worked for a carrier, we'd say, oh, go buy yourself a meal. It's on the company. But oftentimes they'd forget or they wouldn't feel comfortable with it. So I think that opening the door now for a platform to offer these incentives for good behavior and incentivize both parties to kind of work better with each other. I think, like you said, when we're talking about carrier loyalty and what are things to do, if you're a carrier, have you guys got any early feedback while testing this product where carriers are like, man, I didn't expect I really wanted that, but that's a really cool feature? Was there been any early pre-testing feedback?
We don't. We're in the very, very early stages of it. We're getting ready to launch our first pilot customer, a pilot broker with carriers. So our hope is we're going to collect a lot of feedback. Based on my experience, with Trucker Tools has always been our carriers are very, very transparent with us. They'll tell us exactly. So if you look at our app today, every feature within our app has been promoted and suggested by truckers. So I'm very proud to say this on the stage. Carriers actually help us build this app. So thank carrier community.
And looking at that, like being able to do that pilot program. So that's the correction I want to speak as well, is that you guys are looking to launch this. This is in the early stages, but kind of the important thing is this kind of represents an evolution in terms of opportunities and offerings instead of just use my load board, just use my stuff. Here, you guys just figure it out. Now you're able to help try and make things better and guide this behavior based on this feedback, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So so far the feedback has always been, the carriers that we spoke to has been abstract because they haven't seen the product or used the product, right? Once it goes pilot, the goal is we're going to get that real-time feedback from the carriers. They'll tell us, hey, why can't I do this with these points, right? Why don't I get this store where I can reward, redeem my points? So all those things will add up to our success here with this program. Likewise, we're also beyond our pilot broker on this program. We have almost all our broker customers lined up to go live with this. They're all excited about this program. And so we're expecting more feedback to come from our broker community as well. So all in all, we're super excited about this program for what it's, opening for all of us, in this space.
Well, I feel like you almost get incentivized to do the work, and you're, kind of, if I can't do an extra $100 or $50 on this rate, I can use this extra form of currency as a way to help say, look, I know I can't because I'm getting pressure from an account person, or the carrier's probably like, hey, I'm having some pressure from this. I really need to be here. So you're almost offering an additional way to help negotiate rates and provide that kind of incentive in addition to just making it not just a strictly transactional monetary process.
You're absolutely right. And a friend of mine once said this, and so I always like the way he said this. He's a broker, and he said, well, Prasad, I like our brokers to think that if we have a load and another broker has the same exact load paying same exact dollar value, we want the carrier to pick us. Why would they pick us? That additional things, the reasons why the carrier picks that brokerage is what I call it the stickiness with a broker, right? Whether how you treat a carrier, right? You've always helped a carrier when they were stuck in a tight spot in the past, right? So they feel like you got their back, right? That trust. With our program, we're taking that trust and kind of building on it, right? So it's not just feeling like, hey, I know Thomas very well. Anytime I'm stuck in a particular location, I can call Thomas and he'll find me a load, right? That trust is important. While it's there, you're also rewarding me, which makes it even more easy, interesting for me as a small carrier to go that extra mile every single time. I'm telling my buddies and saying, "Hey, work with Thomas because he's always going to be good with you." Moreover, anytime you go above and beyond, he rewards that, right? So that's a good behavior as we go through. I can foresee our future like 5-10 years with programs like this. We will start getting into more positive relationship between broker and carrier, as opposed to, hey, you're charging me for a late fee or something like this. Those things will go away. Obviously, there's if there is bad behavior that needs to be checked in, but good behavior is going to be rewarded more and more. So we become more and more positive in our.
Definitely. And trying to get that good behavior. I feel like you said, is fundamentally just even getting check calls, getting status updates and tracking. Speaking about that long tail, is there any specific challenges when you're trying to find some of these hard to reach carriers and attract them to hop into the platform? Or is it just a matter of just trying to get the message out there to encourage more folks to sign up?
I think there is a little bit of challenge, right? I mean, today, if you talk to any broker, um, they're not at 100% visibility, right? Our best brokers get high like 99%, almost 100, maybe few points down, and the few percentage points down is primarily because of carriers, not because they don't like being tracked, but sometimes they feel like they don't want to share tracking with a particular broker, or they only want to share tracking with one broker, right? Because they trust the other brokers, right? So I always tell people, before you push tracking, you got to build that trust that, hey, you're doing this for a shipper location so that you're not calling the carrier a million times and saying, where are you at, right? And two, more importantly, think about all the work order processing that gets with visibility today. Visibility at the base level, people talk about, hey, where is the load, right? But that's not what everybody's interested in. It's more people are interested in, get me the accessorials quickly, get the bill of lading quickly so that I can process it through the app, right? Quickly to the shipper side. I'll add one thing on the visibility. A friend of mine said this, it's not when the load is going good, it's when the load is behind schedule, how quickly are we going to see that load is being behind the schedule? Are we tracking that load 100%? That's more important to shippers. So when we talk about visibility, those exception loads, right, that needs communication with the shipper and the carrier, are we tracking them 100%? I think we're doing a good job there, but carrier education is a big part of getting them on board.
I think that's one of those hidden things, kind of thinking it up, is that, like you said, yeah, I want to get paid quickly on most days, but I really need to know how well the platform is when things mess up. And so having that ability to use a third party platform and being able to communicate to the broker, having that trust to give your location to the platform, knowing that's going to, be a good steward of your data. That's kind of how you can help attract and provide that value for carriers.
Absolutely. What you said is absolutely true.
Well, it's exciting to see. I know I've used load boards in the past. I've had to when I worked for a smaller carrier, but I've never seen one that is offered or working on, as you guys are about to roll out, in the coming weeks or months, an opportunity to actually get paid for doing the right thing. So final questions here. When do you all suspect to roll this out? Is there an approximate timeline for folks to sign up for maybe a pilot or a trial, or what's on the horizon?
So our first pilot broker is going live midsummer, and with all their carriers. Um, so we've already done few checks and bounds. Everything's going good, and then our goal is once that program goes live, we'll roll out with this next wave of brokers by the end of summer. So I'm using brokers as the starting point because every time we roll out with a broker, all their carriers get it, right? So we're trying to make it open for our carriers from day one as much as possible. Now, obviously, we want to do this in fewer iterations so that we can collect more feedback from both the broker community and carrier community. But this is all lined up to go live very soon.
Well, I'm super excited. Prasad, thank you so much. Keep an eye out for it. Keep an eye on Trucker Tools. They're about to gamify the system here, and you may get paid a little bit extra for just doing a little bit extra hard work. And not only that, but best practices will finally be rewarded. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And again, thank you, FreightWaves, for this opportunity.